Come on, let's go on a walk together as I talk about how I got into IT with no experience and a little bit about how that's been for me. So, I got out of the military and I was studying to do real estate actually. And in some of the courses I was taking, the people were talking about how important it is to stay on top of your loved ones and your friends whenever they're going through hard times, so that whenever they want to buy a house, you just pounce on them. You pounce on them and you sell them a house. And I don't know, the whole thing just really seemed a little bit scammy and insincere. And I was just like, man, I don't want to be a real estate agent. So I started to work as a dog walker on Rover, and I started to take pictures of dogs when I would care for them and board them, and then I would sell the pictures back to the owners. And I was doing that with my husband, and so that's how we were making money for a little bit. And then I worked at a kickboxing gym for a little bit, and then I was like a kickboxing instructor there, which sounds cool, but I truly was just telling people to work out, like kick, butterfly kicks, burpees, which it was kind of fun, but very socially involved. There was no break places or anything. I was just working out with these people and hanging out with them all day. Then I worked as a Starbucks barista, and then I worked as a security guard at a bank for a little while, which was kind of weird to me. It just felt weird always carrying a pistol that was loaded with one in the chamber. It just felt so illegal. Especially coming from the military, where whenever you're on ranges and stuff, you're very mindful and very cognizant of having nothing in the chamber. Gun safety is extremely important, yeah. And so then to transition from that to walking around with a loaded weapon on my person every day was just weird. But the job itself was pretty chill. I was basically like a receptionist at the front of the building, and I would just open gates sometimes and help delivery drivers practice my Spanish, trying to help them make their deliveries. And then I had met my best friend, and you guys have already met her, is in cybersecurity, and she told me that it's a really nice job, it's really easy, it pays well, all these things. And I was like, I don't know, I've never really thought of myself as somebody who's fantastic with technology. I kind of always thought that people in cybersecurity and IT were just ridiculously smart, these crazy brain children who grew up like playing chess and Dungeons and Dragons in each other's basements, and like building all of their own computers and playing with Linux machines. I don't know. That's just how I assumed all cybersecurity and IT people were. And I didn't think that I would fit. I don't even know if I was able to do all of that. But I signed up to go to this program for veterans. ACI Learning was the school name, and basically they would teach you like these courses. It was like maybe 3 months, and they would teach you these courses that went over like the basics of IT, and they would go over what you needed to learn for these certifications, starting with CompTIA A+, which is just going over like IT basics. Think of how the hardware is set up in a computer, some of the basic software stuff and things like that. And then going to like Network Plus, which is just like it sounds, right? The network, whenever your Wi-Fi is out. Why is that? All the different wires and stuff. And then it goes to Security Plus, and that's the one that people really want. That one is the cybersecurity transitioning certification, and that is the certification that I actually took. At the beginning, they also did have an ITIL Foundations, which is kind of like a framework for how to make companies more efficient. Yeah, so to cut out all the waste in processes and how to just get things done really easily, which it was an easy course to take and really interesting. I loved my teacher in that course, but I dropped the ball and I didn't actually take that certification because I kept doubting myself, and I thought maybe if I focus too hard on taking that certification, I'm gonna like use up all my brain power and not be able to focus well on getting my Security Plus, which is what I really need, which I don't know. I should have just taken the ITIL like my husband said that I should, but it's fine. It's not that deep. So after I took my Security Plus certification, I was listening to the instructors that they had. They had a couple substitute teachers coming in and out, and there was this one guy, and I don't remember his name, but he was an instructor from Argentina. He had grown up in Argentina, and he came over to America when he was like 20, 22, and he met this beautiful lady who he got married to, and they had 7 children. 7. And this guy like got odd and end jobs, and he put himself through college at WGU, which is like a school that is accredited, and they mostly have like online IT degrees. They have a lot of different stuff if you wanted to check them out. A lot of people get certified through them. But anyways, he got his bachelor's degree there and his master's degree. And now he works as a part-time substitute teacher for ACI Learning. And then he also works in like cybersecurity as well. And it makes enough money for him to support his beautiful wife, himself, and his 7 children. So he was cool, and he told us that in order to get a job, what we needed to do was to go on LinkedIn and start finding who all of the hiring IT and cybersecurity recruiters were, and to just message them, connect with them and message them, and type out this message that you can copy and paste to all of them. You just like, hi, my name is Elizabeth, and I am trying to get into IT. I noticed that you are hiring. I would love to connect and stay linked in with you, or something like that. But basically, he said, just do that. Sit down on a Friday night with a beer and a pizza and just message everybody. And that's basically what I did. I don't think I had a beer. I don't really like beer very much. But I just was messaging everybody. And I came across a recruiter. I believe her name was Kristen. And I would stay in touch with her. And she told me, just let me know when you pass your Security Plus. And so I passed my CompTIA Security Plus certification, and then I messaged her, and she told me, perfect, there's a job opening, and it requires just somebody that has CompTIA Security Plus and a secret clearance. perfect. Got my first job. My first job, it was on base, and it was just as an IT help desk technician. Basically, they needed me to have that CompTIA Security Plus certification just to be able to work on base. They kind of think of it as a security measure to make sure that nobody is lacking in the basic knowledge of cybersecurity to make them an insider threat. So they just don't want somebody walking in there and, I don't know, not being mindful about their surroundings and sharing too much information about base access or something. So I had that job. It was a good job to start off with. And really, they just worked on repairing very basic things for computers on base. And I learned a little bit at that job. Didn't really get to do very much at that job, to be honest with you. I would show up at the office, and everybody else would show up at the office, and there were maybe one or two people that would get like one ticket every week. I'm telling you, we were not doing anything. Me, I was like learning some stuff about computers, how to re-image them, working on, I think it's called demagnetizing. I don't know. I was just doing some stuff, okay? Not a lot though. I don't think that I actually opened a computer maybe more than once or twice the whole time I was employed there. We weren't doing a lot. But the reason why they hired me is because the contract that the company had that hired me as a contractor, they had that contract with the base. And they had an agreement with the base saying that they would have a certain amount of people while the contract was still valid. Now, the contract was about to come to an end. And if the contract came to an end and they still didn't have the amount of people that they said that they needed in the initial contract, they would have to pay the base a bunch of money. So instead, they decided to hire the amount of people that they said they were going to hire right before the contract ended so that they wouldn't have to pay all these fines. And then within like three months or so of me working there, the contract was ending and the base had decided not to renew that contract with any of the same people. They wanted to hire all new people. So they let us know about a month or so out that we were gonna have to find new jobs. And so I started messaging people on LinkedIn still, right? Looking around. And my husband had actually been to ACI learning with me, right? And this whole time he was not able to find a job, even though he was messaging people and he had been taking way more certifications than I had. At this time, he had his cybersecurity plus, then he had the A plus certification, and then he got his networking plus certification as well. Well, he found this job hiring in San Antonio, Texas, remote, for an IT specialist. All it required was a secret clearance and a high school degree, I believe. Yeah. And it said like IT experience, like appreciated but not needed. And so he applied and he told me about it and I was like, this job is great. I want to work there too. And so I agreed. I said I wasn't going to apply until after he got word back on whether or not he was hired. And he was hired. And so then I put in my application. I did my interview. and I got approved as well. It was funny because I actually had to do my interview on Zoom in my car during my lunch break, and I actually got in trouble because the interview went over by like 5 minutes. And so my manager at the time was like, "You can't have a longer lunch break." And I was like, "I'm sorry, but I was in an interview for my next job," you know? And he was like, "Oh, well, you should have just said that." I was like, "Oh, sorry," you know? So yeah, I got the job. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I did phenomenal in that interview. I'm just speaking facts, okay? I did my research. I looked up the company history. I made notes of the recent contributions in charitable funds, things that I really thought were amazing that they were doing. I was doing research into the company and asking questions on what my next role would be like and how I could excel in it. I prepared for the questions that they were going to ask me. I was looking up how people were responding to IT questions, and how to have confidence in your voice when you were answering all those things, right? So I got that job. Fantastic. And I've been at that job for like a year and 8 months now. And if I can get that job with no prior IT experience, you can too, especially for veterans, because we have so many benefits to be able to go out and get certifications. And that's the fantastic thing about IT, in my opinion, is that in IT, you can go out and you can get a certification, study for a couple months, right? And you can get the certification paid for with your VA benefits or with grants. If you look into it in different ways, you could try to do that. But if you just focus on getting at least one certification, it'll help you to get that first IT job. Once you start getting some IT experience, it's easy to pivot. And that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to pivot into cybersecurity. I'm super interested in cybersecurity. I find it fascinating, and I would love the opportunity to be able to learn more in that area. I feel like it's something that challenges my mind, and so I find it exciting. IT is not as hard as I thought it would be to work in. I am extremely blessed and grateful for the opportunity to be able to do my job while still being at home. I feel like my boss and my supervisors trust me, and also I've proven myself to them. Of course, I do my job to the best of my ability. I have probably the most, they call them green alerts, consistently for like over 50 weeks. That's just whenever the customers say, "I did a phenomenal job." And I always try to go above and beyond to help my team out. I work with some really great people, so I don't think that it's even possible to be doing too much here. I'd encourage you to look into the things you think might not be possible, because you maybe have the idea that somebody in this kind of career field doesn't look like you, or they don't sound like you, or maybe it'd be too much of this or too much of that. I think that it's hard to get a really good understanding of what someone's day-to-day life is like in a job until you kind of shop around and try different things. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have been able to also try so many different jobs and find out the things that I am better at and the things that just really drain me. And so that's what I would recommend that you do as well. Let me know what kind of jobs you've been applying for. Let me know where you're at in the process. And as always, I hope you have a great day. God loves you. I love you. You're doing a good job. Bye.